It was a calm evening at the Coastal Monitoring Center near the North Atlantic. The air inside the small room was cool, filled with the soft hum of computers and the quiet beeps of radar screens. Most nights were uneventful here. The technicians were used to tracking regular ship traffic, fishing boats, cargo vessels, and sometimes small aircraft passing over the ocean routes. Nothing unusual ever happened. One of the technicians, a quiet man who had worked there for more than 10 years, sat in front of a glowing screen, sipping lukewarm coffee. He watched the green radar lines move in circles, painting the same slow picture they always did. But at 8:47 p.m., something odd appeared. A new dot blinked onto the radar, bright and sharp. At first he thought it was just a reflection or a software glitch. These things happened all the time, especially when the weather changed suddenly. But the sea was calm that night. No storm, no static interference. The technician leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. The object was moving fast, far too fast for a normal vessel. Its speed was increasing with each scan, and its course wasn't steady. It wasn't following any regular ocean route or air corridor. It darted in strange directions, almost like it was testing the radar's range. He typed a quick note into the system and ran a diagnostic check. Everything looked fine. The radar wasn't malfunctioning. The signal was real. He hesitated for a moment, then picked up the communication phone that connected him directly to headquarters. "Control, this is Station 4, he said, keeping his voice calm. "I've got an unidentified signal on radar. Location, North Atlantic Sector, Grid 7-2, no ID tag. Moving fast." There was silence on the line for a few seconds, the kind that feels much longer than it is. Then a voice came through, steady and serious. "Station 4, confirm your reading." "I've checked it twice," the technician replied. "It's consistent. It's being marked as a human vessel. But that doesn't make sense. There's no record of anything in that area." The voice at HQ paused again. "Stay on it. We're pulling the feed now." Within minutes, additional radar screens lit up across different stations. Everyone was seeing the same thing. A fast-moving object coming in from the deep Atlantic. It wasn't broadcasting any identification code, no emergency beacon, no radio call, just a silent approach. By now, the mood in the control center had changed. What had started as another quiet night had turned tense. The technician noticed something even stranger. The vessel wasn't just moving fast, it was changing speed suddenly. One moment it was moving at nearly 300 knots. Then it would slow down to almost a stop, hover for a few seconds, and then accelerate again. No known ship or aircraft could perform maneuvers like that. It was almost as if the object was aware it was being watched. HQ ordered the technician to zoom in on the coordinates using high-resolution satellite imaging. But as soon as the satellite feed focused on the area, the object blurred out. Not because of clouds or weather interference, but as if light itself was bending around it. The image flickered between sharp and distorted. "This isn't possible," one of the analysts muttered. The technician felt a chill crawl up his back. He had worked this job long enough to know that radar didn't lie. Machines don't get scared, but the humans watching them do. Within an hour, the incident was reported up the chain of command. Analysts from other departments joined the call. Weather stations, coast guards, and even private shipping routes were checked for any possible explanation, but nothing matched. The radar system's classification software kept tagging it as a human vessel. The technicians tried to override the tag manually, but the system wouldn't allow it. It was reading something, some type of code or electronic signature, that matched known human transmissions. But when they traced the signal, it led nowhere. No transponder, no call sign, no registration, just a data ghost. Then came the second surprise. At 9:36 p.m., the object suddenly changed direction. It turned toward the coastline, directly toward the monitoring center's region. The technician's heart began to race as he watched the blinking dot move closer. HQ started tracking its estimated arrival path. If it kept moving at the same speed, it would reach visual range in under 40 minutes. No one in the control room spoke for a while. The sound of the radar beeping seemed louder now, echoing in the tense silence. The technician kept his eyes glued to the screen, half hoping it would vanish as suddenly as it had appeared. But it didn't. The dot grew stronger, sharper, a clear signal now. Whatever it was real. HQ instructed nearby naval outposts to be on alert. Patrol aircraft were told to hold position until further notice. The order was simple. Observe but do not engage. The object continued to move closer, maintaining an unpredictable pattern. Every few minutes it slowed down, almost like it was stopping to look around before surging forward again. The technician zoomed in again. The signal was now just off the continental shelf, deep ocean territory, known for strong currents and old undersea wrecks. But this was no wreck. A sudden alert flashed on the monitor. Signal proximity threshold reached. The object was now within 100 kilometers of the coast. HQ connected live to all radar centers in the region. The head officer's voice came through the speaker system. All stations maintain visual lock. We're classifying this as an unknown vessel. Human status unconfirmed. Keep system steady, no interference, and log all data in real time. Everyone nodded silently, though no one could see each other. The technician's screen flickered again. The radar feed stuttered, and for a brief moment the object seemed to split into two, then back to one. Static filled the screen. The technician adjusted the settings quickly, his hands trembling slightly. "What's happening?" HQ asked. "Possible interference," he replied. "But it's strange. It's like it's affecting the system directly." And then, just like that, the object stopped moving. It hovered, not over land but over open water, and stayed perfectly still for almost 5 minutes. No signal drift, no movement. Completely stationary. The technician watched in disbelief. "It stopped," he whispered. HQ confirmed. Every radar across the region showed the same thing. A perfect still dot in the middle of the ocean. Then, without warning, the vessel moved again. But this time, downward. The radar registered a rapid drop in altitude or perhaps a dive. It was descending into the ocean. The signal weakened, then vanished. Everyone in the control center froze. "Did we lose it?" HQ asked. The technician stared at the blank spot where the signal had been. "Yes, sir. It went under." "Under?" "Yes, straight into the water." A heavy silence followed. Someone in HQ suggested it might be a submarine, but the speed and behavior didn't fit. No known submarine could travel at those speeds or change altitude that quickly. The technician sat back, staring at the radar, feeling both relief and unease. Whatever it was gone. For now. HQ logged the event as unknown vessel, human origin unverified. But the night wasn't over. Just as the technician was about to close the report, the radar emitted a faint beep. A new signal appeared, not moving this time, just blinking slowly from deep beneath the ocean surface. It was the same coordinates, and next to it, in the system's classification bar, the same strange label appeared again. Human vessel detected. The technician swallowed hard. How can it still be transmitting? Someone asked over the radio. No one had an answer. For the rest of the night, the signal stayed faint but steady. It didn't move again. It didn't vanish. It just pulsed slowly as if waiting. When dawn broke over the horizon, the technician walked outside to the deck overlooking the gray ocean. The sea was calm, almost too calm. There were no ships in sight, no aircraft above. Just a quiet expanse of blue stretching to infinity. He stood there for a long time, wondering what kind of vessel could move like that, and why the system insisted it was human. Back inside, the night's data was sent to HQ for deeper analysis. The technician signed off his report and switched off his monitor, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the night had changed something. Because deep down, he knew what everyone else was thinking. If the system wasn't wrong and the vessel really was human, then where had it come from, and why was it heading back toward them? The morning after the strange radar incident, the atmosphere inside the control room was different. Usually, after a long night shift, the staff looked tired but relaxed. That day, everyone looked uneasy, whispering in small groups. Even the air felt heavier, like the whole place was holding its breath. The report from the night before had already reached headquarters. By sunrise, several officers and analysts had arrived at the station in person. It wasn't common for HQ staff to visit. That alone showed how serious things had become. The technician who had seen the first signal sat quietly at his desk. His screen still showed the faint blinking dot deep beneath the ocean. The signal hadn't moved since last night. It was just sitting there like something waiting patiently in the dark. The senior officer leaned over his shoulder. "It's still there?" "Yes, sir." No movement since it went under. Any sign of interference? None, sir. Systems are stable. The officer frowned and straightened up. Around them, the team worked silently. The sound of keyboards clicking filled the room, but no one spoke loudly. Outside, the weather had turned cloudy. The sea beyond the windows looked gray and restless, waves breaking harder against the rocky coast. It matched the mood inside. Around 10 a.m., the phone on the officer's desk rang. He picked it up quickly, listened for a while, and gave a few short replies. When he hung up, everyone in the room was watching him. That was HQ Central, he said. They've confirmed this isn't a scheduled operation. Not from us or any partner country. Nothing official is moving in or out of this sector. Someone at the back spoke up quietly. Then what was it? The officer didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the technician. We'll run a joint feed check. Pull up the last 12 hours of radar history and sync it with satellite imaging. They worked for hours, replaying the data over and over again. The same strange pattern appeared every time. The object racing toward land, slowing down, stopping, and then diving straight into the ocean. But when they tried to trace where it had come from before entering radar range, there was nothing. The signal just appeared out of nowhere. No trace before that. No gradual approach. That part made no sense. By afternoon, HQ had sent a small team of specialists to the site, people from technical and scientific divisions. They arrived in dark uniforms carrying equipment cases. They didn't talk much to the regular staff. They set up their own computers and began pulling raw data directly from the radar servers. The technician watched them work. They moved quickly, confident, almost like they had seen something like this before. One of them spoke quietly to the officer. We'll need to isolate this feed. Keep all civilian channels closed until we complete the analysis. The officer nodded. Understood. The technician wasn't supposed to listen, but the words stuck in his mind. Civilian channels closed. That meant they didn't want anyone outside to know. Not yet. Hours passed. The specialists worked in silence, their faces lit by the glow of their screens. The technician kept watching his own radar monitor. The signal under the ocean hadn't changed. It stayed steady, blinking once every few seconds. At around 3:15 p.m., something unexpected happened. The signal suddenly grew brighter, stronger. Sir, the technician called out. The signal's changing strength. The officer hurried over. How strong? It's doubling. Wait, tripling now. The room went silent again. Every pair of eyes turned to the main screen as the faint dot turned into a pulsing glow. What's causing it? Someone asked. The specialist from HQ adjusted his headset. It could be rising to the surface. The technician felt his stomach tighten. Rising? Before anyone could answer, the communication console beeped. A direct line from one of the offshore monitoring buoys. These buoys floated in the open ocean, equipped with sensors and microphones that recorded sound and movement. The message came through as a series of tones, which the computer translated into text. Unidentified disturbance detected. Sector 7. The technician opened the live feed from that buoy. The underwater microphone played a deep rhythmic sound. It wasn't mechanical, but it wasn't natural either. It was slow, almost like breathing. The entire room leaned in to listen. The sound faded after a few seconds, then silence. The officer spoke softly. How far is that buoy from the signal? About 15 kilometers, the technician replied. Everyone knew what that meant. Whatever it was close to the surface now. HQ ordered all nearby civilian ships to divert from the area, using weather interference as the excuse. Fishermen were told that the sea conditions were unsafe. The truth stayed locked inside the control center. As evening approached, the technician couldn't stop thinking about the strange, breathing sound. He had worked with sonar recordings for years. Nothing he had ever heard matched that pattern. The senior officer finally told the team to take short breaks in shifts. We stay on full alert, he said. If it moves, I want to know immediately. Outside, the sun was setting. The ocean looked darker now, blending with the horizon. A strong wind started blowing, rattling the windows. The technician sat back down at his desk with another cup of coffee, staring at the screen. The pulsing dot was still there, bright, motionless. Then, just before 7 p.m., it moved, not fast, not slow, just steady, upward. It's rising again, he said quickly. The officer came running. Altitude? It's at 20 meters below surface. 15, 10. The technician stopped, eyes wide. It's on the surface now. HQ ordered all cameras and sensors to focus on the coordinates. The feed took a few seconds to connect, but when it did, everyone in the room leaned closer. The image that came through was blurry at first, waves moving under a gray sky. Then a dark shape appeared at the center of the screen. It wasn't a ship. It didn't look like a submarine either. It was smaller, smoother, almost oval-shaped. The outer surface seemed metallic, but it reflected light strangely, not like normal metal. It shimmered faintly as if energy was running through it. The technician whispered, "Is that human-made?" No one answered. The shape stayed still for almost 2 minutes, drifting gently with the current. Then suddenly it released a flash of light, bright enough to turn the screen white for a second. When the image cleared, the object was gone, vanished. The radar, however, still showed a faint trace. But instead of moving away, it was going straight down again. "It's diving," the officer said quietly. The technician watched the numbers drop. 10 meters, 50, 100. Within a minute, it was deep below the surface again, exactly where it had been before. The same pulsing light returned on the radar. "Same position," he said. "It's back." Everyone stared at the monitor. It was like whatever that thing was had come up only to take a look, and then decided to return below. The officer gave quick orders. "Mark the location. Keep tracking. Notify Central Command immediately." One of the specialists was already on the radio. "Yes, sir," the object resurfaced briefly. No identification. It didn't transmit any signal." The technician sat back, feeling drained. The whole day had felt unreal, like something out of a dream. But this wasn't a dream. It was happening in real time, right in front of them. Later that night, after the specialists left to make their report, the technician stayed behind. He couldn't walk away from that blinking light. It still pulsed calmly on his screen, deep in the dark ocean. He zoomed in again, just out of curiosity. The system showed something new. Faint lines extending from the signal, almost like a pattern or structure. It could have been sonar reflection, but it looked too regular, too organized. He printed the image quietly and slipped it into his notebook. Outside, the wind had grown stronger. The sound of the waves echoed against the windows. The technician turned off the lights and stood by the glass, looking out into the night. Somewhere out there, hidden beneath hundreds of meters of cold water, something was waiting. Something that didn't fit any explanation. The official report sent to HQ that night described it in careful words. "Unidentified human-class vessel detected, capable of advanced maneuvering and submersion. Nature and origin remain unknown." But among the staff, the quiet rumor was different. People whispered that it wasn't a new machine or test. They said it felt more like something returning. As the technician locked the door and stepped out into the cold air, he couldn't shake that thought. Whatever it wasn't just passing through. It had come back, and maybe it was never gone in the first place. By the next morning, word had quietly spread among nearby coastal workers. No one outside the base knew exactly what had happened, but rumors always traveled fast in small towns near the sea. Fishermen talked about strange lights far out on the water. Some said they had seen a glowing object under the waves moving silently just before dawn. Inside the monitoring station, the situation had become more complicated. The signal hadn't disappeared. It was still down there, resting at the same depth as before. What made it stranger was that every few hours it sent out a faint pulse. Not strong enough to be called a transmission, but just enough to show it was still active. The technician barely slept that night. His mind kept replaying the image of that oval-shaped object surfacing for those few moments. The way it shimmered, the sudden flash, the way it went back under. Everything about it felt intentional, like it had come up to make sure it had been seen. When he came back for his morning shift, a group of new people were in the control room. They weren't regular staff. They wore plain clothing, no badges, no ranks. They were from another branch of the government, one that rarely showed up unless something big was happening. They spoke quietly, asked for access to the radar data, and began downloading copies of everything. The senior officer didn't seem pleased, but he didn't argue. Orders had come from high up, and everyone knew not to ask questions when that happened. Around noon, the technician noticed something unusual on the screen again. A second signal had appeared, and weaker but close to the first one. "Sir," he said, calling the officer over. We've got another contact, same region. The officer squinted at the screen. Distance? About 3 kilometers from the first one. Speed? None, it's stationary. The officer looked over at the new people in the room. One of them leaned in and said quietly, "Keep watching. Don't alert anyone outside this room." Everyone in the room knew that tone. Whatever was happening, it wasn't supposed to reach the public. For the next hour, the two signals stayed still, side by side, almost like they were facing each other. Then suddenly the weaker one disappeared completely. The technician checked for errors, but everything was working fine. "It's gone," he said softly. The officer frowned. "Gone how?" "No movement, no trace. Just vanished from radar." That was when the strange reports started coming in from civilian sources. Small fishing, crews and local cargo ships passing near the outer boundaries of the monitored area. One radioed in saying they'd seen a bright glow beneath the water about 10 nautical miles north of their position. Another claimed their compass had gone crazy, spinning nonstop for a few minutes. A third ship sent in a report that sounded even stranger. The captain said he had seen something metallic and round rise briefly above the water's surface just before sunrise. He thought it was a small submarine at first, until it started moving without creating any waves. The technician listened to each report as they came in, his uneasiness growing with every message. None of the ships were near each other, yet they were all describing almost the same thing. HQ sent out an alert to restrict sea traffic in the region, but the reason they gave was naval testing operations. To the public, it sounded routine. To those inside the monitoring station, it was clear they were trying to keep people away from that area. That night, the ocean was calm again. The technician sat at his station, watching the faint blinking dot. For hours, nothing changed. The rest of the staff talked quietly, trying to make sense of the situation. "Maybe it's a new deep-sea drone," one said. "Or a secret experiment," another replied. But the technician wasn't convinced. He had seen hundreds of drones and submarines on radar before. This one didn't behave like anything man-made. Its movements were too sharp, too deliberate, and the signal, that steady pulsing light, felt almost alive. At around 11:30 p.m., something unexpected happened. A loud beep echoed through the room. The radar screen flashed. The signal had suddenly jumped, not in a straight line, but in a wide circular path, as if it was circling the area. "It's moving again," the technician said. Sitting up straight, everyone gathered around the main display. The object's speed was increasing rapidly. Then within seconds it stopped again, this time closer to the shore than ever before. "How close is it?" the officer asked. 70 kilometers, the technician replied. "That's within coastal range." HQ ordered every nearby monitoring post to focus on that region. They wanted full data, radar, sonar, and visual imaging if possible. For several minutes the signal stayed still, as if it was waiting. Then a second flash appeared on the radar, the same kind of sudden bright pulse they'd seen before when it surfaced. The technician switched to the satellite feed. The image was dark and cloudy, but faintly through the low clouds a glow could be seen on the ocean surface. It was small but bright enough to light up the surrounding waves. He zoomed in as much as the system would allow. The glow moved slowly, almost like it was scanning the water around it. Then a thin line of light shot upward for just a second, like a beam, before vanishing. "What was that?" one of the analysts whispered. "No idea," another replied. "It looked like a signal flare, but it didn't break apart." HQ immediately requested atmospheric readings. There was no heat, no combustion, nothing that suggested a flare or explosion. The light had appeared, and then disappeared, leaving no trace behind. For the next hour, the glow drifted across the ocean, then slowly faded. When it was gone, the radar returned to showing the same faint blinking light under the surface. The officer sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Whatever it's doing, it's not random. It's controlled." The technician nodded. He couldn't explain why, but he felt the same. Every movement, every pause, it all seemed intentional, as if the thing under the ocean was following its own plan. Later that night, when most of the team had gone to rest, the technician stayed behind again. He wanted to compare the new data to last night's recordings. That was when he noticed something that made him freeze. The blinking pattern from the radar wasn't completely random. It repeated after a set number of pulses. When he converted the sequence into code, it formed a series of intervals, not words, not numbers, but timing gaps that almost resembled a message. He stared at it for several minutes. The pattern repeated exactly every 7 minutes. What if it's trying to communicate? He thought quietly. He copied the data and showed it to the officer the next morning. The officer took one look and frowned deeply. "You didn't share this with anyone else, did you?" "No, sir." "Good. Keep it that way for now." Then he folded the paper and walked out to the conference room where the visiting specialists were waiting. The technician didn't hear what was said inside, but the conversation went on for nearly an hour. When the officer came back, he looked tired. He didn't say much except, "HQ will handle this from now on. Continue normal operations." But the technician could tell something had changed. They were being told to act like everything was fine, but the tension in the air said otherwise. That evening, a message came from one of the remote listening stations far out at sea. Their sonar had picked up a new sound from the same location. Low, rhythmic, like the steady hum of an engine or a heartbeat. When they played it over the speakers, everyone in the room went quiet. It wasn't loud, but it felt strange to hear. The sound rose and fell in perfect intervals, matching the radar's pulse timing exactly. The technician felt a shiver run down his arms. "It's the same rhythm," he whispered. The officer nodded slowly. "Yes, it's matching the signal." They didn't know what it meant, whether it was communication, movement, or something else entirely. But one thing was clear. Whatever was beneath the water wasn't just drifting aimlessly. It was aware. When the shift ended and the technician finally stepped outside, the night was clear. The sea stretched out dark and silent under the moonlight. From where he stood, it looked peaceful. But he knew better now. Somewhere beneath that calm surface, something unknown was moving, pulsing, thinking. He looked toward the horizon where the glow had last been seen, and a quiet thought crossed his mind, not of fear, but of curiosity. If it wasn't a machine and it wasn't from any known vessel, then what was it trying to say? And most of all, why now? The following day began quietly, but everyone inside the monitoring station knew something was different. The usual relaxed routine was gone. Every face looked serious, every sound felt louder than usual. Even the air had a kind of heavy stillness to it, the kind that comes when people are waiting for something they don't fully understand. The technician walked into the main control room just after sunrise. The large radar screen showed the same blinking signal deep beneath the ocean. But now, it wasn't just one. A second faint light had appeared again, close to the original. He looked at it for a long moment, feeling the same unease return. Every time they thought they had figured out its pattern, something new happened. The senior officer stood nearby, speaking quietly into a headset. "Yes, confirmed. Both signals are active. No, sir, no identification yet." He paused, then added, "Yes, we'll keep tracking." When the officer hung up, he turned to the technician. "HQ wants all systems on continuous recording. Don't miss a single movement." The technician nodded. He started running fresh diagnostics and checked the radar's calibration. Everything looked fine. There was no error. Both objects were real. By mid-morning, the new light began to move, slowly drifting around the first one in a wide circle. The movement was smooth and steady, like it was orbiting the other. "Maybe it's a smaller craft," one of the analysts said softly. "Or maybe it's not a craft at all," the technician replied. The words hung in the air. No one wanted to ask what he meant. Outside, the weather had turned foggy. The sea was calm but covered with a thick layer of mist that stretched all the way to the horizon. Visibility was poor. No ships in sight, no planes above. Around noon, a new message came in from HQ. A pair of aircraft had been sent out to patrol the region where the signals were strongest. Their orders were simple: observe, don't approach. For the next few hours, everyone watched their screens closely. The technician could hear his own heartbeat as the clock ticked slowly. Then, at 2:17 p.m., one of the aircraft reported visual contact. The radio crackled with the pilot's calm voice. "This is Alpha 3. We have eyes on something below the surface. It's large, reflective, maybe metallic. No visible markings." HQ asked him to describe it in more detail. "It's about 30 meters long, oval-shaped. The surface looks like it's changing color. Hard to explain. Almost like liquid metal. The entire room went silent. The technician glanced at the officer. Both of them knew this was no ordinary object. The pilot continued. We're maintaining distance. No activity detected. Wait, something's happening. It's emitting light again. The radio went quiet for several seconds. Then the pilot's voice came back, more tense now. We're losing instruments. Radar's flickering. Static interference. The transmission cut out completely. Alpha 3, respond. The officer called. Do you copy? No reply. The technician looked at the radar feed. Both aircraft icons were still visible, but their data streams were blinking irregularly, like the signal was being jammed. For nearly a minute, no one spoke. Then the feed came back, the pilot's voice faint but clear. Control, this is Alpha 3. Systems are back online. The object just descended and west. We've lost visual. It's gone under again. Everyone exhaled at once. HQ ordered both aircraft to return to base immediately. They didn't want to risk another close approach. The technician stared at the radar for a long time after that. The signal was back to its usual place, deep under the sea, pulsing softly, almost like it hadn't moved at all. What do you think it wanted? One of the younger analysts asked quietly. The technician didn't answer. He didn't know how to explain the strange feeling that had settled in his chest. It didn't feel like the object was attacking or running away. It felt like it was watching. That evening, the fog grew thicker. The sky turned gray, and by nightfall it was hard to tell where the sea ended and the sky began. The world outside the station looked like one endless sheet of darkness. Inside, the team remained on alert. The senior officer had received new orders. If the object surfaced again, the nearest naval vessel would be sent to investigate. Around 10:45 p.m., the radar beeped softly. The signal had started to rise once more. The technician leaned forward, eyes wide. It's moving upward again. The officer came running. How fast? Slow this time, controlled. Everyone gathered around the screen. The blinking light climbed higher and higher until it reached the ocean's surface. HQ connected to a remote buoy camera near that location. The live video came online, showing only waves moving gently under the night sky. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a faint glow appeared beneath the water, dim at first, then brighter. It shimmered through the waves, casting silver light across the dark ocean. The technician whispered, "There it is." The glow grew stronger, until finally, something broke the surface. The shape was smooth, curved, and almost perfectly symmetrical. It rose halfway out of the water, glistening as droplets slid down its surface. It didn't look like any vessel they had ever seen. There were no antennas, no windows, no markings of any kind. The surface seemed alive, like it was shifting or breathing. Everyone in the room stared at the screen in disbelief. Then suddenly the light changed color. It turned from silver to pale blue, glowing softly. The ocean around it rippled, though there was no wind or movement. Is it sending a signal? Someone asked. The technician checked his instruments. No radio transmission, but there's a vibration reading. Something's humming through the water. HQ began recording every detail. For several minutes, the object stayed still, floating quietly on the waves. The pale blue glow flickered gently, almost like a heartbeat. Then, without warning, the glow intensified. A brilliant flash that filled the screen with white light. When the image cleared, the object was gone. The ocean was calm again, as if nothing had ever been there. The technician scanned the radar. The signal had vanished completely. Not even a faint pulse remained. Gone, he said softly. The officer didn't speak. He just stared at the empty screen. For the rest of the night they waited, hoping the signal would return, but it never did. By dawn, the radar was completely clear. The ocean looked peaceful again, stretching endlessly beneath a pale morning sky. Some of the staff thought it was finally over. They were relieved, even though no one could explain what had really happened. But the technician wasn't convinced. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't finished, that whatever they had seen wasn't leaving, but hiding. Later that afternoon, he stepped outside for a break. The air smelled of salt and rain. Waves crashed gently against the rocks below the station. Everything looked normal, yet he felt a strange pull toward the horizon. He remembered the pattern from before, the blinking signal, the timed pulses. He thought about how it had repeated almost like a message. What if the light they had seen last night was part of that same pattern? He went back inside and opened the radar logs from the night before. He replayed the footage frame by frame. When the object flashed before disappearing, he slowed it down further. Something odd appeared on the screen. A short burst of bright points within the flash, spaced evenly apart. He wrote down the intervals between them. When he compared it to the earlier pulse pattern from the radar, the timing was exactly the same. It wasn't random. It was repeating something. He showed it to the officer later that evening. The officer studied the data quietly, then sighed. "I'll send it to HQ, but don't talk about this outside the team." The technician nodded, but he could tell the officer was as unsettled as he was. That night, long after everyone else had gone home, the technician sat alone in the control room. The sea outside was dark again, but he couldn't stop staring at the radar screen, waiting for something to happen. Then, just past midnight, a single blip appeared, faint, almost invisible, in the same place as before. It flashed once, then disappeared. A few seconds later it flashed again. Then again. The pattern was identical to the previous one, slow, steady, rhythmic. The technician leaned closer. His hands trembled slightly as he wrote down the timing. It was repeating the exact same message. He didn't know what it meant, but deep down he knew one thing for sure. It wasn't random. Whatever that vessel was, it wasn't gone. It was still out there, somewhere under the ocean, watching, waiting, and maybe trying to talk, and this time it wasn't hiding anymore. The technician couldn't sleep that night. Even after the faint blinking on the radar had stopped, his eyes kept replaying the image of that single light, flashing again and again in the dark. It felt less like a random pulse now and more like a call. The next morning, the base was unusually quiet. The officer was already in his office, reviewing reports. Everyone else spoke in low voices, careful not to draw attention. The air inside the control room felt heavy, almost like everyone could sense something coming. The technician entered with a tired face and a cup of coffee. He hadn't rested at all. He turned on the monitors and checked the logs again. The faint blip from midnight had been recorded clearly. No system errors, no false signal. It was real. He zoomed in on the pattern. The time gaps between the pulses were exactly the same as before. That meant whatever it was repeating the same code again. The officer walked in holding a small folder. "HQ received our report," he said quietly. "They've asked for all new data every 2 hours." The technician nodded. "Did they say what they think it is?" The officer shook his head. "No, only that we're not the only ones seeing it now." Those words made everyone look up. "What do you mean?" one of the analysts asked. "Another station, about 400 miles south, picked up the same kind of signal last night," the officer explained. "Same pattern, same pulse rate. They even caught a flash over the water before it disappeared." A long silence filled the room. "So, there are 2 of them?" someone whispered. The officer didn't answer. All morning, the technician kept comparing data from both stations. The signals were almost identical, only a few milliseconds difference in timing. It was like both lights were synchronized, blinking together across hundreds of miles of ocean. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling, trying to understand. If they were machines, they had to be communicating. But to whom? And why now after days of silence? By early afternoon, the ocean near their station started showing unusual readings. The water temperature dropped by 2 degrees in less than an hour. Then the sonar detected strange echoes, not loud but deep, like something enormous moving slowly beneath the waves. "Could be a current shift," someone said, but the technician wasn't convinced. "No, it's moving too steadily, like it's following a path." The officer ordered everyone to keep monitoring. HQ was alerted again. They wanted constant updates. As the day turned to evening, the clouds thickened. The wind grew stronger. Rain began to fall softly, tapping against the control room windows. Outside, the sea turned darker and rougher, the waves climbing higher. The technician stayed at his desk, watching the radar. The faint blip was back again, flashing steadily under the storm. Only this time, something was different. A second blip appeared, this one closer to the shore. He leaned forward quickly. "Sir, another signal, moving toward the coast." The officer came running, his eyes fixed on the screen. "How fast?" "Not very, but steady. Direct line toward us. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then the officer picked up the radio. "HQ, this is Northern Station. We have confirmed movement toward our location. Repeat object approaching land. HQ's reply came quickly. Understood. Maintain observation. Do not engage. We are deploying surface units. The technician could hear the rain outside growing louder, pounding against the roof. The radar's green glow flickered across their faces as everyone watched the signal creep closer, mile by mile. Then, just as it neared the shallow water line, the blip stopped. It hovered there, unmoving. Silent, only a few kilometers away. Why did it stop? The officer whispered. No one answered. For almost 10 minutes, nothing changed. The storm raged outside, thunder rumbling in the distance. Then suddenly the entire radar screen blinked, once, twice, and then went black. Power surge? One of the analysts shouted. The technician checked the systems. No, the equipment's fine. It's external interference. A deep, low hum filled the room, faint but strong enough to make the windows vibrate slightly. The lights flickered. The officer shouted, "Shut down non-essential systems. Keep power to radar only." They restarted the radar backup, and when the screen came back, everyone froze. The signal was no longer in the water. It was on land. Impossible, the technician said softly. There's nothing there, just cliffs and forest. HQ was immediately informed. They ordered visual surveillance from the coastal cameras. Within minutes, the nearest camera feed appeared on the main monitor. At first, only heavy rain was visible. The waves crashed against the rocks. The trees bent in the wind. Then a faint blue glow appeared between the trees. The same color as before, pulsing gently. There, the technician said. That's it. The glow brightened, then dimmed again as if responding to something unseen. It didn't move closer. It just stayed still, flickering softly. Is it projecting light? One of the analysts asked. No, the source is floating. The technician replied, squinting at the screen. It's not touching the ground. HQ ordered a nearby drone to be sent for closer observation. The drone's camera feed connected within minutes, flying low over the coastline. The image was grainy because of the rain, but the glowing object was clear now. A smooth oval shape suspended a few feet above the wet ground. There were no markings, no visible openings. It looked identical to the object that had surfaced days before. Then the drone's instruments started to glitch. The video began cutting in and out. The technician tapped the control pad. We're losing signal. Hold on. Static filled the screen, then total darkness. The drone feed was gone. Drone down? The officer asked. Unknown. The link just dropped. It's like something blocked the entire signal. The technician replied. HQ ordered all remaining drones to stay back. They didn't want to risk losing more. The team watched helplessly as the blue glow on the camera feed continued to pulse softly in the rain. It didn't move, didn't change shape, just kept glowing. Hours passed. By midnight, the glow slowly faded until the screen was black again. The technician sat back, exhausted. It's gone, the officer rubbed his forehead. Get some rest, everyone. We'll analyze the footage in the morning. But the technician didn't rest. Something about the pattern of that glow bothered him. He played the last few seconds of the recording again and again, slowing it down each time. Then he saw it, a tiny flicker inside the glow, almost invisible. He measured the timing between those flickers. It was the same rhythm as before, the exact same pulse pattern from the ocean. He felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever it was still sending the same message, but now it wasn't in the sea. It was on land. The next morning, HQ sent a research team to the location. When they arrived, they found nothing, no debris, no footprints, no heat marks. The only thing left was a thin layer of fine silver dust scattered across the wet ground. Samples were taken to the lab. The technician joined the analysis later that day. Under the microscope, the dust shimmered faintly, even in complete darkness. One of the scientists whispered, "It's not metallic, it's organic." No one spoke for a long time after that. The technician stared at the sample, his thoughts spinning. If it was organic, then maybe what they'd seen wasn't a machine at all. Maybe it was something alive. That night, back at the station, he sat alone again, watching the radar. The ocean was calm now. The storm had passed. Everything was quiet. He thought about all that had happened, in the signals, the lights, the strange blue glow in the forest. Every time they tried to understand, the answers only got more confusing. Then, just as he was about to shut down for the night, a soft sound echoed through the speakers. It wasn't static, and it was rhythmic. A slow, pulsing tone matching the same pattern again. He turned up the volume. The tone repeated over and over, like a heartbeat in the dark. He quickly recorded it and ran it through the sound analyzer. The results made his skin crawl. The tone wasn't random, it had structure. Frequency shifts, tiny intervals, almost like words. He played it again, this time slower. The pattern sounded almost musical, rising and falling in waves. For a moment, he just sat there staring at the screen. The sound didn't feel mechanical or threatening. It felt calm, almost gentle. He whispered quietly, "You're trying to talk, aren't you?" The tone pulsed once more, then faded away completely. The radar was silent again. He leaned back, unsure whether to feel fear or wonder. If it truly was trying to communicate, what was it trying to say? And more importantly, why now? Outside, the ocean reflected the pale light of the moon. The world looked peaceful again, but the technician knew that peace was only on the surface. Deep beneath those calm waters, something alive, something intelligent, was still waiting. And this time, it had found a way to reach them. The morning after the strange sound was recorded, the technician arrived early at the control room. The sun was still low, turning the clouds pink and gold. Everything seemed peaceful, but he knew better. That calm, that silence, it always came before something new. He switched on the radar system and checked the night logs. The signal from the ocean hadn't returned, but the sound file was still there. Clear, rhythmic, almost gentle. He played it again through his headphones. The low pulsing tone filled his ears, slow and even, like the steady beat of a living heart. He wrote a note in his report. Pattern continues. Tone consistent, possible message. The senior officer entered soon after, holding a folder from HQ. "They got your sound file," he said quietly. They ran it through several filters and frequency models. The technician looked up quickly. "And?" The officer hesitated for a second, then said, "They think it's structured, like language, but not any human one." The room fell silent. "They also want to keep this confidential," the officer added. "No outside communication, no press. They don't want public panic." The technician nodded slowly. He understood. If people heard that something unknown was trying to speak from the depths of the ocean, there would be chaos. All through that day, he replayed the sound over and over, slowing it down, changing the frequency, testing every possibility. Each time, the same pattern appeared. It wasn't random. Something or someone was trying to talk. Late that night, long after everyone else had gone home, he sat alone at his desk again. The faint hum of the machines was the only sound. The sea outside was calm, the moonlight dancing on the waves. He stared at the radar screen, waiting. For hours, nothing happened. Then, just before midnight, the radar beeped softly. A single light appeared, faint and steady, back in the same deep area of the ocean where it had first been detected. He leaned forward, his pulse quickening. "You're back," he whispered under his breath. The signal flashed slowly, then paused, then flashed again. Exactly the same rhythm as the sound from the night before. It was communicating. He turned on the audio system and linked it to the radar frequency. The same tone played through the speakers, but this time it was clearer, sharper. Then something unexpected happened. The tone changed. It shifted slightly in pitch, rising and falling like a melody. It wasn't repeating anymore, it was answering. The technician froze. He realized what was happening. The system was sending back a response tone from his equipment, a small echo caused by feedback. The object in the ocean was reacting to it. He hesitated only for a moment before adjusting the controls. He set the system to send out a steady tone, matching the same rhythm that had been repeating for days. Seconds later, the ocean signal responded exactly in sync. For the first time, it wasn't just a one-way message. It was a conversation. The technician sat there, completely still, watching the blinking light on the radar and listening to the deep, calm tones echoing through the speakers. Each pulse seemed to carry intention, like it was waiting for him to answer. He kept sending the same simple tone back, steady and slow. The signal would pause for a moment, then return with a slightly different pitch. It almost felt like it was learning. Minutes passed like hours. The whole world outside was silent except for the rhythmic communication between one man and something far beneath the waves. Then suddenly, the tone stopped. The radar screen flickered once, twice, then a second light appeared beside the first. The technician's breath caught. Another vessel. Another signal. Both lights blinked together, perfectly synchronized. Then slowly the two began to move upward. He grabbed his radio. "Command, this is Coastal Station. The signals have reappeared, too, this time." "They're ascending fast?" Hugh responded instantly. "Stay on full observation. Do not send any transmissions. We are monitoring satellite feeds now." The technician didn't stop watching. The blinking lights climbed closer and closer to the surface until they reached the shallow water zone near the coast. The officer rushed in. "What's happening?" "They're coming up again," the technician said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Same area as before." Within minutes, a nearby buoy camera went live. The image was shaky because of the waves, but clear enough to see the surface of the ocean. At first, only the dark water moved. Then a soft blue glow began to rise beneath the surface. One light, then another. Everyone in the control room fell silent. The two glowing shapes slowly emerged from the sea side by side. They hovered just above the water, shining like two giant drops of liquid light. Their surface shimmered, changing colors faintly, blue, silver, pale white, like they were made of light itself. The technician whispered, "It's them." The officer didn't speak. He couldn't. Then the sound came again, low, deep, and smooth, echoing across the sea. The air around the station seemed to vibrate softly, the same rhythm as before. The technician adjusted the receiver so the sound could be heard more clearly. It wasn't just a hum anymore. It had tone and depth, like a voice made of music. The two glowing vessels hovered for several minutes, motionless. Then one of them tilted slightly, almost like it was turning toward the shore, toward them. The sound changed again. It was slower this time, softer, like it was speaking directly to the people watching. The technician turned to the officer. "It's trying to talk again." The officer nodded. "Record everything." They stood there, no one daring to breathe too loudly. The light over the ocean pulsed gently in and out as the rhythm deepened. And then, just for a moment, the sound shifted into a pattern that was unmistakable. It was the same pulse rate as a human heartbeat. The technician's eyes widened. "It's mimicking us," he whispered. A shiver passed through everyone in the room. The vessels had learned the sound of the heartbeat, perhaps from their earlier recordings, and were repeating it back. For a few moments, the ocean echoed with the rhythm of two different heartbeats. One human, one unknown. Then the lights began to fade slowly, their glow dimming against the dark water. The technician leaned closer to the microphone and whispered almost instinctively, "Who are you?" The speakers gave one final low tone, gentle, drawn out, and filled with a strange kind of calmness, and then everything went silent. The lights disappeared beneath the water again. The radar flickered once more and then went blank. No signal. No sound, no response. The officer exhaled. "It's over." But the technician didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a pause, a waiting. He sat in silence long after everyone else had left. Outside, the waves sparkled faintly under the rising moon. He thought about everything that had happened. The signals, the lights, the sounds, the strange dust that wasn't metal but something alive. Maybe it wasn't trying to scare them. Maybe it was trying to reach out, to show them something humans still couldn't understand. He opened the sound file one last time and played it softly. The deep, slow tone filled the room again. It was peaceful, almost comforting. He closed his eyes and listened carefully. This time he thought he could almost hear a pattern within the tone, a rise and fall like breath. And in that moment he realized something. Maybe the ocean had always been alive. Maybe for all these years, humanity had been staring into its depths, thinking it was empty, while something intelligent and quiet had been watching back, waiting for the right time to say hello. He looked at the radar screen one last time. It was blank, calm, still. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the end. Because every story that begins in silence never really ends there. Somewhere far below the waves, two faint lights flickered once more, hidden from human eyes, but not gone. They pulsed slowly in the same gentle rhythm, like two hearts beating in time with the earth itself. And even though no one on land could see them, the ocean carried their sound, a quiet, Steady message spreading through the deep water, traveling farther and farther. It was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was a greeting, a signal that said in its own strange and beautiful way, "We are here."